Okay, hi, hello to everyone. Welcome to a new live event with Career Foundry, how to create a powerful design portfolio. First, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to give a couple of more minutes before kick the things off so more people can join and get settled. Meanwhile, please go ahead and put in the chat your name, where you base, and maybe why you are interested in a career in the design field. That would be a nice way to kick the things off. We love to make our events really interactive, so please feel free to drop any comment throughout the session. If you have any problem with the sound, please let us know. I can hear, more people can hear. Yeah, if you have any problem, please refresh the page or the browser because maybe there is like a problem in the technical of your site. Uh, can the people hear us? Is it okay? I think Kylie, you can hear
Hello?
me properly, right?
Yeah, I can hear you, Belinda.
Yeah. Okay. I hope all is good and you can figure out what's happening with the sounds. Okay, let's carry on. Today, webinar is going to be about portfolio, and for that, we have invited Kylie Weber, who is our expert in product design, and she is also a CareerFoundry UI design graduate. We are super happy to have her back to the channel. It's not the first time Kylie is with us. She has hosted previous session with us before, and she's going to give us a great presentation today regarding portfolio. From my side, I'm Belinda. I'm events manager here at Career Foundry, and I will be the host of today's session. For those who are new to the channel, I would like to introduce you to Career Foundry. So Career Foundry is the online career academy for aspiring tech professionals. We guide you from complete beginner to job-ready professional in UX, UI, and product design and help you land your first job in the field. With our programs, you can develop the skills of in-demand professions, up skills in the tools of the future, and work with expert mentors and career specialists to stay ahead of the job market. And all of this in a flexible online setup and with a job guarantee at graduation. Also, I would like to give you a few of our house rules. This webinar is going to be recorded and we will send the recording out tomorrow via email with further resources. We'll have a Q&A after the presentation, so if you have any question for Kylie's, please drop them in the chat in the Q&A tab, and we will cover them at the end. And if you have any question regarding Career Foundry's programs, my recommendation is to book a call with one of our program advisors because they are the best to answer your questions and guide you through your career concerns. And with that said, I won't take any more time. I would like to welcome to everyone once again. Thank you so much for joining us. And please, Kylie, go ahead and have a lot of fun.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Belinda. And yeah, thank you everyone for being here. It's great to be back with Career Foundry talking about portfolios today. And yeah, what a great time of the year to talk about portfolios. I think kicking off the year, talking about how you want to present yourself online and what that means and what portfolios are. We're going to be discussing what you need to know about portfolios, well, from my perspective, and also what you can expect from the industry. We'll look at a few examples of different portfolios out there and kind of try to tap into your creative side and see if any of these portfolios would best suit you, and also discuss whether they're the right choices as portfolio designs as it comes to being a first-time designer if you're coming from a different career and now this is your first portfolio. So I believe this presentation is for everyone. I think if you have an existing portfolio, there's a lot of juicy stuff in here that could help you improve the portfolio that you have. And also for new or beginners who are just looking at their portfolio, and also for people who have no idea what a portfolio is. I'm just here to kind of put clarification on that and just help everyone be on the same page. I will end the presentation with some tips on what I think would be good for beginner designers, and also maybe what could be interesting for other designers as well, as they think about maybe transitioning from maybe an older portfolio to something a bit more seasoned as they're becoming a bit more experienced. So this is a good presentation for everyone in regards to talking about portfolios. So let's get started. What is a portfolio? I think the best way to describe a portfolio is the sentence that I have under the title, which is a collective representation of you, your qualifications, your skills, and your best design projects. Historically, portfolios were kind of isolated to more creative fields that are connected to print design. So you could see something maybe like couple of years ago where somebody would walk into a room for an interview and have a book with them with pages and pages of kind of ideas and concepts and things. And you'd see this for photographers, for example, trying to land a job. But nowadays, portfolios are used practically in every industry. It's not just isolated actually to tech or to design. It's what is expected by recruiters today. But you could also see someone who's an engineer and they have a portfolio, or a lawyer as well. So it is now more widely used in recruitment, but is very important for UI UX designers. Some of the things you can expect to see in a portfolio, what you're expecting to kind of highlight, are who you are, kind of give a first impression of your personality, if you like. It has work, it has projects, but not just any projects, and we're going to talk about that later on in the presentation. It probably highlights qualifications, skills, and how you'd like to present that information. Could be really interesting when it comes to portfolios, and there's so many different ways for you to do that. It has a contact page for people to contact you when there are interesting opportunities, or a client or recruiter comes across your page, for example. So that being said, I think it covers already, it's kind of self-explanatory as to why you would need one, but let's just cover some key points. So one, it's just a holistic kind of one-stop shop for everything about you as a designer. It should speak volumes as to your capabilities. I would say to some extent your personality, your character, the kind of vibe you want to give off. And it also is important when you're looking at the different places you're applying to. For example, if you have more of a creative fun side and you've maybe had more experience in creative design, it would be less likely to have a portfolio that matches something if you go and apply for something, let's say in the banking industry. For example, your portfolio will project the kind of person that you are and the job you're trying to apply to. Recruiters will expect you to have one. So this is needless to say, it's just industry standard nowadays. And it's the best professional representation of yourself. So this isn't a place for you to put, I wouldn't necessarily say for you to put like pictures of your last trip or what you've been doing. It's more a professional basis or platform for you to speak and to share your views professionally on maybe certain topics and things like that. Something that people do miss sometimes, which is more something I see in portfolios for myself, that is it is a good way for you to keep track of your own progress. Because maybe if I say, okay, your first year as a designer, put up your best work on your portfolio, that would look different and feel different maybe 2 years later when you look at some of those projects and think, that was my best work a year ago, probably isn't my best work now. And that's okay. And that's fine. But it's a good way for you as a designer also to keep track on how your methodology is being formed, what kind of processes you used in different instances. And I think that's fine. And you shouldn't be worried that, that isn't my best work now. Of course not. But in the future, you're going to be expanding on that and improving that. So that being said, we're going to look at the sections in a portfolio that recruiters, clients, anyone who is interested in that for whatever reason that they would be, which probably only would be for hiring, would be expecting to see on your portfolio. This is not necessarily in any order. I've just put some of the key sections here for you to see. And one is, I said we're going to come back to that, is putting your work. And these are the UX projects you're doing, UI projects you're doing. If it's challenges or UX challenges that you're doing, that's great. If you have other talents in the creative field, maybe not really specifically UI UX orientated, but it may be in photography or illustrations or things like that. This is where you can showcase that work, but it needs to be your best work. So if you have, 10 projects and you've done 10 projects, that's great. But if you really know that only 3 of those projects are your best, those are the only ones that should be going on your portfolio. You just don't want to have good work mixed with subpar work to what you would feel for yourself, because it kind of sends the wrong message that you actually maybe don't have good quality work. You just want to be able to show only your best stuff. So work is something that is at the forefront, especially for beginner designers. This is something all recruiters are going to expect to see. The next thing, of course, is an about me page or an about me section. It doesn't necessarily have to be a page, but it can also be a section. This could be a place for you just to talk to the recruiter, explain a little bit about yourself, your background, and information that you feel is interesting and shows more of your character. This could be a good place to do that. A contact me page or section. This is, I think, really, really important. And we're going to look at some examples later on in this presentation of how people have used that, but having a contact me section is vital. The next 3 that I'm going to explain are more, I would say, sections I would definitely have to a portfolio, but it may be a little difficult for beginner designers, but that's okay. I think it's just good to understand what sections you can expand on and what you could add later on. The first one is a testimonial section. This, I can't stress enough, is so, so important, especially nowadays when there's just so many people gunning for so many jobs. Getting testimonials from people you've worked with and having that showcase on your website or in your portfolio can be crucial and really, really important. So I would highly recommend having testimonials. Having a content or blog section. This is a little different for every designer or professional. I know it's not always interesting to feel like, oh, I need to write an article every week. You don't have to do that. You could also get permission to share articles that you find interesting on your portfolio, or just share and just kind of a way to talk to your community about what you're interested in. And that speaks volumes also for recruiters. So that could be something interesting to have on your portfolio. And the last thing, probably something you would see in more seasoned portfolios for designers that have a bit more experience, is a section on their methodologies or their workflows. And this is more established over time. As you work in different projects and have different kinds of exposure, you may find that you have a set way in which you work. This is explained in a lot of courses in both UI and UX design, but I can't necessarily say that as a beginner designer, you know exactly what your methodologies are, you know exactly how you work. I think that's a bit of a stretch. You're still learning and trying to understand how all of this works. And in the industry, you are going to find, as you get experience, that some methodologies don't work for certain projects. So this is interesting as you grow to add a section on that in your portfolio. So now that we've spoken about why you need it, why it's important, the different sections you'd expect to see, what I would like to do is kind of have a little learning workshop with you guys, and I'd like you to participate in that and think about that. Is we're going to look at 3 different portfolios from 3 different designers, probably based in different parts of the world, I'm not sure. We're going to look at 3 different websites or portfolios and look and see what designers were thinking, what kind of feeling do you get from these portfolios, and maybe that can help you as well as you think about your own portfolio. The first one we're going to look at is Vicky March. So there's probably going to be a link in the chat. If not, it's on the top left-hand side of this screen. You can just type in, Vicky March in your browser. I'm just going to give a few seconds for that, just so that you can open it up. And I'm going to do that as well on my side, so that we can both, well, all of us are seeing the same thing. All right, great. So if you've opened Vicky March, the first thing you'll notice is this really cool animation with these paper airplanes kind of going across the screen. You have this really cool kind of introduction, hey there, I'm a UX designer. This is something you will see standard across many portfolios. So this is something you would expect to see from a designer portfolio. I would like to use this particular example as a really good example of how to lay out the sections of your portfolio. So you have this kind of welcome message that sends this kind of personal introduction, really simple navigation on the top right-hand side, again, standard of what you'd expect to see. And then you have her projects, right? So you have, and if you scroll down through each of these projects, they kind of have this really cool vertical, horizontal, should I say, animation, which is quite nice. And I think it's simple enough that it's not distracting, and still kind of adds this really cool element to her page. And then you can click through each and every one of those projects that she has. This is probably one of the most easiest ways and simple ways to show your work. And this ensures that recruiters are not going around fishing for information that they need. If they want to see your projects, it's clear, they know where to look. But from what we've just discussed in terms of kind of the key sections that you would have, which one do you think is missing from like the navigation on the top right-hand side? I'm just going to give a second for people to just put in their answers or what they think. And there's no wrong or right answer. Hey, it's just something to get your mind jogging and working. So I'm just going to give a few seconds for that. Okay. So if you said contact page or contact section, you're right. And this is a bit of a, for me, not a UX problem, but I think people, she does have a contact section at the bottom of her page, and that's okay. But I feel that having the contact page is just an expected page to have separately in the navigation, so people are not going to look, oh, where was the contact page, especially if they are looking through projects or maybe they're on your about page. This is just an example of just making sure those navigations are clear. So we've looked at Vicky. We've seen, I think the layout is great. So if you're looking at adopting this kind of layout and feel and this simple animation, I think you'd be in a good way. And this is a good example for upcoming designers and people who are just kind of looking to just showcase their work in a simple and digestible way for recruiters. The next one we're going to look at is Josie Allison. You can see that URL as well. It's josie.com, the top right-hand side of this slide. And Josie has a very different way of producing her work or showcasing her work. And I would say she's just from interacting with this portfolio, you can see like this interchanging words, product, brand, graphic, UI, UX. And if you scroll down, she's got these massive letters that go across the screen. It's nice to meet you. Her case studies are, you hover over each of them. They have this big image that you can see from each of those case studies. And as you scroll down, you can also see this kind of rotating animation around an email and LinkedIn. And I think it's really fun. It's really interesting to see and to look at and to interact with. And you would spend probably a lot more time interacting with this portfolio than you would, for example, for Vicky March, right? But also what we need to keep in mind is what message is she trying to send? To me, this is playful, it's exciting, it's intriguing. You want to be able to go into each of these sections, and that's cool for certain industries that you want to tap into as a designer. However, it could be risky especially for beginner designers who would like to showcase their work more. Especially as a beginner, you want to be able to put that at the forefront. This could be for a designer, for example, who's a little more seasoned and who probably already knows what kind of designer they are, what opportunities they're going for. So this could be interesting for designers like that. But I don't want to limit people and say, oh no, you can't have this kind of portfolio as a beginner. It would just be advice of, I'm not sure if this would send the right message as a beginner designer. But by all means, if you have a creative side and there's certain industries you're gunning for and you know exactly what kind of jobs you want to get into, this could be a portfolio for you. And I think it's fun and interesting. So it's just a different way of producing work. And I think there's no wrong or right. It just depends on what is best for you and where you are currently in your career. All right. The next one we have is Peter Noah. So I will give a few seconds just for people to load peternoah.com. And again, this is a portfolio layout that you would expect to see as well. It's quite a common one. You have, hi, I'm Peter, a product designer based in so-and-so. This is a very common sentence to see for a lot of portfolios today. I also use it myself. I used it myself in my first portfolio. So it's just what people are used to seeing. And Peter's layout is really simple. As simple navigation on the right-hand side. He has a contact page. His About Me page is very simple. It's very clean. He's really utilized his white space. He just wants to already show that he's very probably organized, quite serious, I would say. And maybe that would be attractive for certain industries, and that's kind of the designer he is. The one thing I would say about this website or this portfolio that was a little confusing, which you should watch out for, is if you look at his projects on the work page, at first glance, I wasn't sure which button was to view which case study. Was it for the first image or for the second image? Because the spacing is a little off. So I would just recommend that if you choose these kind of big images or big banners, there's nothing wrong with that, to have big images and then kind of have text in a view case study. But make sure that the spacing is correct so that recruiters know which case study they're opening and they don't have to guess as to, am I opening the bottom one? Am I opening the top one? And at first that for me was a little confusing, but I still think that he's had each case study individually, and you can actually investigate each and every one of those. And I think the navigation is really easy. And from what I can see from this site, it was probably built with Squarespace, and they are known to have very clean interfaces and very clear, clean templates, which is really great. So yeah, that was us looking at Peter Noah. And that is our last kind of portfolio that we wanted to look at in terms of the examples and the inspiration that you can look out there, and what you'd still be able to pick what you need from these examples and then see what best suits you for your portfolio. The last one we're going to look at is my old one. And this is to kind of put everything that I've talked about and then look at how I approached my first portfolio. So this is not the portfolio that you will see now. So if you type in, KylieWeber.com, now this is not what you'll see. We'll look at that one towards the end of this presentation so you can see the difference in the approach that I used. So in my first portfolio, the first thing I wanted to do was my work comes first. It wasn't about me or my story or my background or my career change. For me, it was my best work forward. I just wanted recruiters to have the quickest access to those projects. So I didn't have a big banner. I didn't have, lots of stuff in the beginning. I just had my work as my homepage. I did have an about page, a projects page, which had several sub pages in there, and I'll explain why in a minute. I did have a resume page, and I worry why people don't have this more, because when people see your portfolio, the next thing they're going to do when they contact you is, could you please send me your resume or your CV? That would be the next logical kind of series in the communication. So I actually put my resume on my portfolio, but there are certain things you have to be careful with that. So if you do decide to put your resume, remove all your personal information that you won't want floating around on the web, right? So, if you have a resume that has your exact location and maybe your telephone number, and you just don't want everyone to have access to that, then you'll have to create a different version for your portfolio. So just be very careful with that, because you just don't want it just on the internet, out there for everyone. I did have a blog page, so I actually took the time to write several articles that I was interested in. One of them was my transition, and that was a really popular one. It gained a lot of traction. And actually, one of my articles was brought up in an interview where one of the recruiters or senior designers in the team actually said, "Oh, I read your article." And I was really shocked. Actually, I was like, wow, we actually took the time to read through one of my articles. And so that it does really help in certain cases to have a blog or a contact section, like I've mentioned before. I had socials, Behance, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Those are the three most important for me at the time. And I had a really big, bold CTA, in other words, button that says, contact me, so that you can't miss it. So that's how I laid out my homepage. And for me, I think it worked at the time. It was exactly what I wanted it to do. People didn't need to guess which, what project, where the project, what kind of projects are these. It was all very clear, which was really cool. And then I had an about page, and here I kind of played around with it a little bit. I did have some fun. I thought I do want to show my personality, and as much as I'm open to all industries at this point, I still wanted to show that I'm open, I'm fun, I'm empathetic. I really enjoy working with people, and I love making processes as fun as possible, because we have to work every day in this industry, and it can be challenging. So I just want to bring a bit of light, say, to a team. And so I highlighted things like where I was born. I think being born in Kenya and living in Amsterdam was a cool thing. People found that really interesting and really cool, as how I made it from Kenya to Amsterdam. So these are kind of the kinds of information and stories that recruiters could find valuable. So I would say on your about page, just be very careful, though, especially for beginner designers, because recruiters do tend to sometimes feel like we overshare as career changers, because we have so much to say. We've done this amazing thing, and it is a great journey, and it's amazing, but you have to be careful not to overshare stories in your in your about page. You'll always have the chance to explain and go into depth when you have an interview. I just wouldn't necessarily say that the best place for that would be your about page. Just try to keep it, sweet, short, to the point, and maybe fun and a little interesting to read for whoever is reading that. I did have a content section that I had at the bottom of my about page, and that was really cool. So I had the section of about, and then underneath kind of the articles that I had written, which is a cool transition for that page at the time. And then, like I said, I had this projects tab, or this projects page. And because I didn't only have, I had case studies, which are big case studies. I mean, we're looking at pages in a PDF format or something like this. And then I had UI UX challenges, which could have just been, 2 screens or 3 screens. And then I had digital art and illustration designs, which are things I did in my free time, or just how to keep my creative juices flowing, so to say. So I had different pieces of work, and I didn't just want to put them all in one place. They were all really good pieces of work, but I just wanted to separate them so that it's easy to digest for whoever is going through these. And so that's what I did. So all the UI challenges and things were on one page, my case studies were on another, and my digital artwork was on its own page. And that was just a really cool way for me to showcase my work. And I think it was clear, and you don't have like a picture like what you have here, and then you have a case study. It would just look a little strange. So I decided to separate that. And yeah, I think those were the main sections of my portfolio. The contact me page, I had a section that was at the bottom of the page, and then I also had one that had its own page. So I did it twice just to make sure people don't miss it, like we've already mentioned before. So that is everything that I wanted to cover in terms of different portfolios, different sections, different ideas, concepts, layouts, inspirations that you might be thinking about when it comes to what you would like to put out there and how best to do that. In now kind of thinking about, okay, you want to have a portfolio, you have an idea of kind of what you want to put out there, but what are the best tools to use? This is a huge question. So people are always asking me on LinkedIn, like, oh, I've seen your portfolio, like, which one is the best tool to use? And what should I use? Squarespace? Should I use Webflow? Should I use WordPress? And to me, I really find this is a very individual thing. For me, at the time when I was starting out, I just didn't have a lot of budget. I had some to kind of invest in a portfolio for maybe a year, but I didn't have a lot. So something like Webflow for me was not an option, and also Webflow was not as big a player as it is today. So I went with Squarespace. And this was because budget-wise, it just worked out for me. It was an amount that I was comfortable to invest in my first portfolio. The customization possibilities are good enough for your first portfolio. They're not crazy out there. You're not going to get all this amazing customizability, but it's enough to get the job done. If you want really high customizability, I think the only way you could probably go is WordPress or Webflow. because those are really the only ones that can really give you that, get your hands dirty and do things exactly how you want them done, the exact spacing you want, animations, things like that. For me, it was also the learning aspect. I just didn't want to adopt a tool that would take me like 3 months to learn. I just really wanted to get my portfolio out there as easily and quickly as possible. And Squarespace just fit the bill for me. I have talked to other designers who did use WordPress, and it worked fine for them. Others who used Wix, which got a bad rap in the past just because Wix templates were really poor and really outdated. But I think they've really improved over the course of the years, trying to put more modern templates out there. And Wix is a good place if it's a one-stop shop, so you can probably host and get your domain and everything, and just do everything within Wix and not have to go to a different provider to get your domain name, for example. Squarespace probably does this as well. I think I haven't used Squarespace in quite a long time now because I moved my site to WordPress. But I think it just really depends on you and how much you're willing to learn. Something like Webflow is high investment, but can be a really great tool to add to your stack. So if you already have, you have Sketch or maybe Adobe Figma, and you're really into learning tools, then Webflow might be really interesting for you. But what I would suggest then is probably put up a site that would at least be your work out there for you to be able to apply for jobs. And then maybe if you're not familiar with Webflow, just learn it over time. And it could be a great tool to add, and also to be able to get clients and to work in the future. So it just really depends on what you're aiming to achieve, how much time you have, the budget you have, and things like that. So for me, Squarespace was my to-go, but isn't the only option out there, of course. Oh, and by the way, I also wanted to say, if you really do not want to spend like any budget, you're like, you know what, I just want something out there that's just going to be a portfolio. It has my work, this contact there. I'm not really looking for a lot of customizability. I just want my work up. You could also use Google Sites. So it's free completely. So you could probably use that as well. So there are just a lot of options depending on what you need and what best suits you in this moment. All right, my tips. From everything that we've discussed, there are a few key things I would like to highlight. I know it's been a lot, but probably my first tip is I would take the approach, if you want to create a fantastic portfolio and you want to use Webflow, for example, I would do what is least time consuming first. I would put up a site with Squarespace or with Wix, have it up in maybe a week, maybe a little more. If you need time to, do the layout and organize your work, have it out there while you're working on your perfect portfolio. Because if you keep your portfolio for too long, you're going to find that you're working on it for months and months and months. And maybe you're just getting more and more into, let's say, even if it is Webflow or WordPress, if you're not familiar with WordPress, you could find yourself being frustrated because you can't do things, or that plugin doesn't work the way you thought it works. And you could find yourself just like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. It becomes super frustrating. So don't mix learning a tool with bringing out your portfolio. I think you should separate those two things and just have your portfolio out there as quick as possible, and then work on your perfect scenario over time. Have your work stand out. Of course, this is kind of in tandem with putting out your best work. We've already discussed that already in this presentation. Adding your CV is a big tip. I think that's a tip on my end. I don't know why people don't do it more. Just, again, make sure those personal details are out of there, just so that you don't have people, contacting you from strange places and you're not sure where they got your information from. Asking peers for feedback. I mean, this is needless to say. As designers, we're always encouraged to share our work and to get feedback from our peers. And this also applies to your portfolio. So once your portfolio is ready, or in a place where not even if it's ready, actually, you could probably share the design of your portfolio way earlier and get feedback from your peers on that. And that's a huge plus. Remember that your portfolio is a work in progress. This is a tough one for designers because we feel when we do our portfolios that it's done. And oh, thank God it's done. It just doesn't work that way. You're going to find yourself working on your portfolio year after year after year. You're going to have different ideas, different concepts, and what worked for you one year, you may look at it a year later and go, I don't really, I want to change it. I don't really like the way I did this, or this could be better. So just remember that as long as you have your best work being shown and it's accessible, it's good enough. Just remember, it's always going to be a work in progress. Don't underestimate testimonials. For beginner designers, this could be difficult because you may not have testimonials from clients or potential, people who have worked with you in the past in this related field. But I still feel a testimonial could also come from a mentor or a tutor for CareerFoundry, for example. This also applies. It's people who have seen your work. It's people who have seen what you're capable of. And I think they could provide you a testimonial to get you started. So it's not impossible for beginners. But for more seasoned designers, it would be good to add as many testimonials as you can, or the best quality testimonials that you can get your hands on. Don't focus on tools too much. This is the last one. Like I said, just take what makes sense for you now. And as you progress and you grow, you'll find that you may want to adopt another tool like WordPress or Webflow that is a bit more advanced. But don't feel like you need to focus on, which tool should I use? Don't spend ages on this. Just pick one tool. For now, it will do. So don't procrastinate on this too much. That being said, we're going to look at my new portfolio. So this is the portfolio that I have up right now. So if you look at, I'll go to kylieweber.com, and that is on the top right-hand corner as well. You can see my new portfolio. And in this portfolio, I kind of put my work, I would say, second in the background because I wanted to showcase me. I'm a bit more seasoned now. I've had a few more opportunities than I did, 4 years ago. So for me, it's showing my personality, a little bit about me, my skills, my journey, my testimonials. So you'll find my homepage is just a lot about me and using that as an about me page, or everything to do with me as a designer. And then you'll see I have projects or work. And again, I've separated these sections. That's something I learned from my previous portfolio. It's something I've still adopted till now, is you'll find sections on UI, UX design, art and illustration, and a new one that I've been kind of working in over the past 1.5 years, which is project management. So that's a new aspect to and how I'm going to be able to kind of portray that on a portfolio has been a real challenge for me. So, hey, anybody here have some good ideas on how to portray project management work? I'm all ears because this is different from design. There's not a lot of visual elements involved and there's a lot of processes. So if anyone has any ideas, I'm open for that. But yeah, I think I do showcase more of my tools and the things that I use on a daily basis. So this portfolio, I think, is a lot cleaner, and it shows someone who's a bit more confident as well and a little more seasoned, which is what I wanted to portray with this one. And now to wrap things up, just to kind of take everything that we've discussed and put it in a nutshell. Portfolios are a must-have in the design field. You're not getting away with it. You have to have a portfolio. And actually, in some cases, you'll find you're not even able to apply for a job without one, that they'll have it like an asterisk field in an application where you have to add a portfolio. So you must have one. Your portfolio is not just for recruiters. That's true. Your portfolio is also not just for people you're trying to get necessarily target for jobs, but also for peers. It's also for, a stand for yourself in this industry and showing your work, not just to recruiters, but to peers, and also for yourself, and to keep track of your progress as time moves on. Always keep it up to date. This is a tough one. I think when you're first doing your portfolio, it's really exciting and it's great. And you finish and you feel, oh, thank goodness it's finished. And then you have to update it. And that's hard. Sometimes when we're in jobs or already gotten contracts from clients, we then are so focused on the work, we kind of forget about the portfolio. And we work for 2 years and come back and realize, oh, haven't updated this in 2 years. Just because it's not been necessary. I would highly suggest to always keep those updated so that you don't have to look at it when you need it, which is always a bit harder when you decide to leave a position and then go to your portfolio and think, oh no, I haven't updated this in like 2 years and I have so much work to do. So that's just a tip as well. Be true to yourself as the designer you are. There's lots of inspirations out there as to how different people portray their work, but you know what you are trying to achieve better than anyone else. And I think as much as there are like two goals, like this is the standard way of, displaying your work, make sure that you're being true to the designer you are today, not the one you want to be, but the one you are today. And it'll just make the process a lot easier. Again, always remember it's a work in progress, and that peer feedback is super, super important. And don't be afraid to share that with your peers and other people who could help you give some insightful feedback on your portfolio. And that being said, that's it for me. We'll be taking questions now and ask Belinda to come back. And thank you guys so much.
Hi again. Kylie, thank you so much for a great presentation, as always. It's been super informative and super insightful and also super interactive. I loved the engage of our audience in the chat. So thank you so much, and also for the great work you have done with this and make it so clear and so easy for us so we can make better portfolios. So huge thank you. We have a bunch of questions. Most of them, you already covered them in your presentation, but maybe we make sure to double check them, and our audience can get the information better in their heads. So let's start the Q&A with questions regarding testimonials. Are super interesting. So we have a question from Nicole. Would you suggest having testimonials from all fields you are showcasing, or only those focusing on UX UI design? Is the same like Nadia? Nadia also has a question that said testimonials from UX UI experience or previous ones like transferable skills. I think this is super interesting to hear.
I think the one for transferable skills is great. I mean, if you have something that will complement you as a UI UX designer, I would say that it applies. However, I would be careful with this as well. It has to be related, I think. I think it's great if, for example, you have a testimonial. Let's say, for example, you used to work in customer service, and the great testimonial there. That could be really great for UX designers, because you are working with people and getting feedback and answering questionnaires and doing maybe observational studies, and used to working and interacting with people and gathering feedback and information. So this could be really interesting. But if it's completely unrelated, like maybe you worked at a surfing school or something, that might be a little less interesting and less applicable, I think. But if it's related, I say go for it, especially in the beginning, because if you can populate it, it's great. And later on, as you get more quality testimonials that you could probably replace, then you just replace them out whenever you get them. And you could also request this when you have reviews with your employer, for example. Like if you have an appraisal or something going on, you could always ask them, like, oh, could you please write me a testimonial? And you're right. Ask it from someone, something to highlight. Testimonials are always positive, but I think you could always swap it out. So if it's related, absolutely. If it's not really related, then I would keep it. I would keep it out.
Wonderful, nice. Okay, we have another question regarding testimonials. Give me just one sec, because we have a bunch of questions. So Haman is asking, which kind of people are the best to get testimonials from? In example, managers, co-workers. What if you don't freelance and don't have clients?
Okay, so if you, the best people to get, let me ask the first one first. So the best people to get testimonials from, I mean, managers would be the best. If you say, okay, if you're going to ask for a testimonial, having it from a manager or somebody who's overseeing you or higher than you. Because in some companies and startups, like the hierarchy is very small. So even though you could be working as a UI UX designer, you could have a lot of connection with the CEO, for example. This would be amazing. Peers, I would be a little careful with. I think it really depends if they're, so if you're like let's say you're working in a company and you're a junior designer and you're working close with like a mid to senior level designer, you could get a testimonial from them. But it would be better if it's somebody senior. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I think was, sorry, Belinda, the second part of that question was,
like, for example, if you are not a freelancer and you don't have clients.
Yeah. So if you're not a freelancer and you don't have clients, then like I said, if you're just starting off and you just don't have the space where you can get a manager to give you a testimonial, then you could get one from mentors and tutors that have maybe had contact with you during your course, for example. If you're a self-taught designer, then I would say leave the testimonial section of your portfolio until you have a manager or somebody who could provide you with a quality testimonial. But it needs to be someone who has worked with you in that field at a more senior capacity. That would be the best quality testimonial to provide.
That's interesting. What about if you, for example, are studying a course and you still don't have experience, but you want to build up your portfolio? What do you think about your student's colleague or maybe your mentor or career specialist? Maybe they could give some testimonial about how you work, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. This can totally be a good approach. I just feel like testimonials have gotten this rap that it needs to be that you're in a job and you've been working for several years, and I just feel like it's not isolated to this. Yeah.
Nice. Great. Okay. We have, you ready?
Yes, sorry, my dog is doing
No worries. All good, that happens. So we have a question from Linette. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. I try my best with the pronunciation. We have a super interesting question from Linette. How do designers who are just starting out create a portfolio when they have little experience? Is it okay to showcase school projects, or is it the best to create personal case studies?
If your school projects are, if you have projects that are whatever projects you have, it actually doesn't matter really. If you have projects that are showcasing that, that's a good piece of work that for your level where you are, because as beginner designers we do have that imposter syndrome in the background where we feel we need to be at that level where we can show like outstanding work, and we want to be able to do that, right? But you also need to see where you're at and your level. So if you're a beginner, I do think recruiters, as you're looking, because you are looking for a job entry or like entry level position jobs, they will not be expecting to see like designs that are of a designer of like 5 years experience. So if you have any projects, whether it's school projects or maybe projects you've picked up on your own, let's say you just create your own case studies and you want to work on your own project, as long as it's good and you really feel, okay, I did good work here, I did a lot of work, I've showcased my work in a way that's easy to digest and somebody can follow what I was doing and my thought process, I feel that it's valid to put in your portfolio, and you can do that. All I suggest is when you're starting off, just make sure that you're always putting in your best work. So if you start in the beginning, you put, let's say, like 3 projects, which is fine. You don't need to have a portfolio that has 10 projects. You can have a portfolio that only has 3, and that's absolutely fine. But the idea is over time to either increase that. So, in 1 month, say every month I'm going to put 1 project. It could be a small project. It could be a design challenge. It doesn't have to be like a case study that you've done lots and lots of research for. It could or could not be. The idea is just to keep adding your best work. And what you'll find is you'll add work and then start removing work. That's what you're going to see yourself doing as you progress and become better. So it really doesn't matter whether it's a school project, whether it's a project that you've picked up on your own. The idea that needs to be focused on is the quality of that work.
Yeah. Nice. And also that shows all what you have learned, and also it could show your creativity. Even though you don't have experience, it could show so many things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you have mentioned regarding the amounts, I have a question that came up. So from your experience, what is like the best amount of projects for a portfolio?
You mean in terms of the number?
Yeah, the number. Sorry.
I think a maximum of probably 8 to 10. I wouldn't put more than that. That's already quite, I mean, to have 10 really good projects is really hard. I myself don't even have 10. I have like 5 in the last 3 years. So I would say, I mean, 8 is already a lot. 10 would be pushing it. But if you do have them and they are good pieces of work, you do want to put them up there. But I wouldn't do more than 10, because what you will, they're supposed to be teasers, right? They're supposed to be things where recruiters can open up, potential clients can look through and see and experience, and then contact you for more information about your work. And there you can talk about, yeah, and I also did this, and you could send then content and case studies to them of ones that are not included in your portfolio. So there has to also be that element of not showing all your cards. If you do have some pieces of work that are not on there but are still would have been okay, but this didn't make the cut for the portfolio level work, there's no reason why you can't share that experience or that project or that description of that project, the brief, what you did, when you have an interview, for example.
Nice. I think in 10 projects, you can show a lot of your skills and work, definitely, but also maybe a minimum of 3.
Yeah, absolutely. 4. Like three is also fine. Like, I think also sometimes, I mean, we do see portfolios of designers who they do have 10 or so projects just because they've just been working in the industry for 15 years. Then you'd see somebody with 10 projects. But to have 10 projects within the first 3 years or 2 years, I'm not sure that will be your best work. I think we just want to populate it to show how much we've done. But just remember, in this case, it's quality over quantity all the time. That's just the rule of thumb.
Nice. Okay, let's move on to the question of Anastasia.
Mm-hmm.
So she's asking, no more PDF portfolio nowadays?
I mean, you can. I think the thing with PDFs is, I think some designers feel like they don't want to give their work away, and to an extent. I mean, you can put your portfolio in a PDF format on your portfolio. So if you have a project and you want to, it's case study and then it's download this PDF, you can do that. But the thing is, I mean, there's always ways now that somebody can even look at your work and your ideas, but you just don't want to give the file. I think some people just feel like it's a step too far. What I did is I just created image sections and just broke down my case study and put each image into its section rather than a PDF. Although the challenge with that could be that your website, if you have many projects, like I said, like if you're looking at somebody who has like 10 projects and they have lots of images in there, high quality images, it could make it slow to load, which can be a little irritating for recruiters. But I still feel that it's just what's preferred. But there's nothing to say that you can't send a PDF of your work, especially if let's say it's not one that's not on your portfolio. Like if they're asked in an interview, like, oh, do you have any other work that you could share with us or that you would like to discuss? You can send the PDF of your work. You should have PDFs of your work, but whether you share those on your portfolio is up to you. I just think the standard is probably not to do that. Like, I don't think you'll see a lot of designers that have, download PDF or open PDF, just because then it's giving the file of your work in a way.
So it's like another way, complementary, but like the main always.
Yeah. The main, that you could do it if you're asked. If somebody asks you, could you send me this file, and it's a recruiter, I mean, then you would send them the file. But otherwise, just take, you can even do this in Figma or in XD, it's all the same. You can also just take the images, download, export each of those images that you have in your design file and just put them into the website, and it works as well.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kylie, I know you have given a great speech about the tools to use to create your portfolio, but we have people, I didn't know there were so many. We have many people asking for another tools So maybe you could give an insight of Framer. I don't know if you are familiar with this one, Figma and
Mm,
Notion, to create
yeah.
portfolios.
I haven't had a lot of contact with Framer, to be completely honest. It's not something I've used or I've heard a lot of, so it's interesting to hear users ask about Framer. But I would believe that this again just depends on, like I said, the focus should not so much be on the tool. If you want to use Framer and it works for you and it has all the functionality that you need and it will, produce you or help you to create a good portfolio, then do that. It's really up to you as to what tool you use. And if Framer is doing it for you and you're convinced that this is a great tool for me to use, then I would do that. The only thing that I said that matters and that people look at is their situations, the costs. Like I said, I'm not familiar with Framer. I can't take you through, their cost structure and what the features that they have. I've just never used it before. But if they have a good cost structure and it works for you, and maybe you won't need to maybe later on go into a more advanced tool, like it won't need you to go and for your next portfolio to then use something like WordPress or a Webflow, then do that. It's what I just encourage people is don't procrastinate over it. If you say, okay, Framer looks like it could work for me, great. There's no wrong or right. The goal is to get your portfolio out there for recruiters. And then you'll realize you spent way too much time thinking about what tool to use. When you land your position, you won't need this for like a long time. And you wouldn't have needed to really think about, oh, which tool did I use? And actually, really, recruiters are not looking at this, especially at the first stage of recruitment. Like if you look at the people who are screening these portfolios and these applications, they're not spending more than 5 seconds, maybe 10 max on each portfolio. They're just trying to make sure that you meet the criteria. Okay, great, awesome, and then it moves on. Nobody's looking at, oh, did they use WordPress? Did they use Webflow? This is something you can then later on say, oh, and actually for my portfolio, I found it important for me to use Framer, and this is why I did that, if you're asked. But it's a very, very small factor in your career journey and your recruitment journey. So if Framer works, then go for it. Absolutely.
Right. So it's more a personal choice.
Absolutely.
All the options we
Just
have.
don't spend ages thinking about this. That's just all I encourage designers or like beginner designers, because we want to do everything perfect. We want to pick the perfect tool. We want to have the perfect design. We want to have everything, but it's not as critical, the tool, as it is getting your portfolio out.
Right. The important thing is to get the portfolio there.
Yes.
So, but you mentioned the first tool you used for your first portfolio was a Squarespace, or
Squarespace. Yeah.
that was the good one for you at the beginning?
That was perfect for me, because I just needed something that I didn't think about a lot. I didn't want to think about layout and spacing. And I think Squarespace, it has really, really good templates. You don't have to worry that, the text won't be good, or the font options you have, and just the layouts of the templates are beautiful and they work. So for me, that was just a quick, easy way to get that whole thing out the way. I didn't have to go and design everything. Let's say, for example, in a design software like Figma, or you can do that as a designer. Maybe it's a good way for you to practice again that skill of designing and then transitioning that design to. But then you would use something probably more like Webflow or another integration tool to change your design in Figma into a functional portfolio website. But for me at the time, it took me like a week and my portfolio was up and I was happy with it. As long as it was up and there and clean, that was what was important to me.
Nice. Okay, I'm mindful of the time, so let's take a couple of more questions. We have one that come up so often, Kylie. This is a question from Sai. Is it necessary to learn HTML and CSS for UX UI design?
This is a very good question. I think when I started out, I would have said, yes, absolutely, get into that if you can. I think learning HTML and CSS as a beginner, as somebody who's just starting to get in touch with the field of design, it will provide you with a different outlook on the entire process of design, and not just design, but product development. Because as designers, we are taught to kind of think in a bubble. We operate in a kind of a canvas environment. We take our elements and we create our interactions and we do all these great things, but not understanding how that's going to be taken and built can be a miss. And I remember, Belinda, we talked about this as well at length at the previous webinar that we had. So if you want to know more about that and how HTML and coding and everything connects between designer and developer, you should check out that webinar. I think it would be really insightful, probably also for Sai. But learning this, or not being an expert. I'm not saying that you need to, now designers need to go and learn everything to do with HTML and dive into CSS, but understanding the basics could be very, very valuable in terms of your let's say your value in the product development process, because you can probably understand a little more of what the developers are thinking, what they have to do, how much work is having to go into creating these designs and developing these designs. Of course, developers have their own tools and their own things that help make their life easier. So they're not coding, not everything is hard coded from scratch nowadays. So that's not the case. But I still think knowing the fundamentals could be very valuable. Should you put it at the forefront as a designer in the beginning? Probably not. As you get more seasoned, maybe you'll find that it becomes more and more important for you to understand more of coding. But in the beginning, it's already overwhelming enough to learn everything there is to know about UI, UX design. It's a whole industry in itself and discipline in itself. So I would focus on that and diving more into your field. And when you're maybe in a position where you're like, okay, I've done a lot of this now, I would like to tap into a little bit of the coding aspect, then maybe see if that's still interesting for you. But in the beginning, I wouldn't necessarily focus on this a lot, unless you want to use it as part of building your portfolio. That could kind of come hand in hand. So if you're thinking, I'd like to build my portfolio, but I'd like to code it myself. That's just something you'll feel as a designer, that you feel accomplished, that you were able to do that. And that could be very motivational for some designers. So if that's your goal, and you're just starting to code, I would definitely still recommend put up your site on Squarespace or wherever, on Framer, get it up there, and on the side, work on coding your site from scratch so that you use it as a learning experience. That way you're not, spending ages trying to get this portfolio off the ground.
Nice. So it's not the focus, but the most, the more you know, the better.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. And timing is everything. So just don't overwhelm yourself. Everything is already a lot. So I would say coding comes in second. If you have the capacity and you feel you have the interest, because a lot of designers feel, I could learn to code. They get into one session of a coding course and they feel like, this is really boring. I don't know. That's just how I felt. I'm interested in coding. I just don't particularly enjoy doing it. So it just depends on the designer. If you're interested in it, then of course, go ahead and dabble in it. But if you're asking us, should you do this? You don't have to do this in the beginning.
But you learned with your colleagues, right? They explaining the job, right?
Yeah. So when you're in, especially when you get into a work environment as a designer, you then have access to developers who you could build relationships with, and they can show you, okay, this is how it works, and this is how I build, and you can learn a lot actually from them. So I just don't be in a rush to do it, because you will come in contact with a developer at some point in your career, and they could be a great kind of intersection in showing you, okay, when I get your designs, this is what I do. And you could piggyback. If you get somebody who's friendly and you get to know them a little, they can show you and tell you, okay, this is how we do things, and this is where it's complex, and how we, search for, how we build elements and things, because they also have their own component libraries. And it's a really interesting world, actually, the developer world. So I would say just take one step at a time.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing this, Kylie. Really important tip you gave. Don't overwhelm yourself at the beginning.
Yes.
Really important. Yeah. Okay. I also shared the link in the chat of the webinar Kylie mentioned, and the collaborations between developers and designers. Super interesting. So you have there if you have time to check it out. Okay, we have one question from Chavi. How long did it take for you to fully transition to design?
I think to fully transition took me about, I would say, a year to make the full transition. And this was, I do consider myself lucky in this case. There are some people who sometimes take even up to 2 years to fully transition just because of opportunities. And I just got very lucky with my first opportunity. And that was with Syndic for You. So I joined CareerFoundry, I think late, probably November 2019 is when I joined. And I used the whole of 2020 then to kind of get into the design world. And I did a lot of courses during that 1 year. So I did, of course, the UI. So I'm predominantly a UI designer. So I did the UI design course with CareerFoundry and the full immersion course, and then did front end development for designers as my specialization. So I did that over a course of 1 year. So during this 1 year, of course, I'm still, working in restaurants. I'm still working at bakeries. You're still doing all of these little jobs just to be able to transition. And then I landed my first position in 2021. So that's probably, I would say probably a year and maybe 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm. And you did that working full time, or?
I was working at a restaurant at the time when I was transitioning, and that was 4 days a week. So it wasn't full time, but felt like full time.
More or less, huh?
More or less.
Takes a lot of time.
Yeah, so I did most of my design work in the evenings. So I'd work during the day and then do design tasks in the evenings, and then every single weekend, more or less, for a year. So it was quite intense, but I was happy with what I was doing. It was exciting. Actually, I didn't see it as a burden. So it was every time to get into design work and tasks and listen to what peers were talking about and sharing my work. It was actually really fun. So I really enjoyed it.
Great. I would stay here like longer.
You would, wouldn't we?
Because I really enjoyed this session so much. But let's close the session with one question from Juanma.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get started on projects at the very beginning of my career so I can build the portfolio? Like, basically, where do you find, for example, inspiration as well?
Yeah, there is. I think I think you're suggesting when you finished a course, I'm guessing, because with CareerFoundry, you do courses. So if you're not already enrolled in CareerFoundry and you're just kind of thinking about what you want to do and you haven't enrolled in a course, there are lots of briefs that you can find online. So even if you type in something like design briefs for, I don't know, beginner designers, they can give you like briefs that you can work at. So it'll be something like design a website for a surfing school or a skateboard, an e-commerce for a skateboard store or something like this. Like, pick interest. What I would suggest, if you're going to pick projects that you actually enjoy. Because I remember, like, when I first started, I did like a responsive website design for pet-friendly accommodation. This for me was interesting. I have a dog, and it's always such a struggle to find somewhere to go with her. So this was fun and interesting for me, and also relatable because it's a problem I actually have. So it's great if you could find something that's interesting, fun, and something you find that's missing. Because you can, if you do this and you showcase it on your portfolio, the likelihood that people will see this as valuable and not just, like, for example, you're free to do like an e-commerce store, but there's lots of e-commerce stores. And now there's just not a lot of design freedom when it comes to e-commerce because it's quite set. Most e-commerce stores have, the same layouts, the same UX flows, just because it's established and it's what works and it's what people are used to. So try to think of something that would solve a problem for you, maybe, or for a family member, or for someone you're close to that you can gain information from. This could be very valuable as a project. But I would say, avoid things that have already been done. I mean, there's some things you could, or you could try and attempt to be very bold and do like a redesign for, because we see a lot of that as well, like people redesigning like Uber or Amazon is an amazing one. Anyone want to do that as a project?
Brave.
That's awesome. Probably the worst user experience in the world. So like Amazon or something like this. Take on you could also approach it like that. Think of a website you really feel it has really poor UX and feel I could do this better. That could be motivational in having a good project. So something you're passionate about, something that solves a problem that you have. Those are all things you could actually see out, because it's difficult to pick projects that you're not really interested in. The likelihood of you finishing those projects well is quite low, because if you're bored halfway through your case study, you're going to be like, oh, why did I pick this? It's so boring. So you have actually the rare opportunity when you're picking your own projects to actually do something fun and interesting, and that actually solves a problem.
And passionate, if possible.
Absolutely, if possible.
Kylie, thank you so much for answering all of the questions and giving such great and many insights to help us to create great design portfolios. I really would like to thank also to the huge bunch who stayed until the end. I would like to give you a few information before we close the webinar. So if there is here anyone who would like to career change into UX, UI design, or also into product design, CareerFoundry is still offering this month a special discount, a New Year's scholarship worth up to $1,520 and 1,328 euros of the full price of the UX and UI design programs. It's a different amount for the product design program, but also there is the scholarship for that program. So if you would like to receive more information regarding this, I recommend to book a call with one of our program advisors, and you can do that by simply clicking on the sticky note that you can see at the top of the chat. Also, if you would like to learn more, there are more resources out there. CareerFoundry has an amazing blog where you can read great articles about UX, UI, and product design. Also, please check out our YouTube channel and also our social media accounts like Instagram and TikTok. There are many resources out there, so you can keep the learnings up. And also, if you enjoy these sessions, please check out our events page, because we have more sessions upcoming. Kylie probably will be back to the channel, so stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Kylie, for being with us today once again and sharing so many great insights. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, no, thank you all so much for staying and for listening. And I hope that everything that we discussed today helps you and is able to put you on your journey to creating your first portfolio. So yeah, thanks, Belinda. It's been great, as always. A fantastic host. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see everyone in the community in the next one. Thank you guys so much.
A pleasure.
Also, if anyone has any additional questions or anything like that, just contact me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy. Sometimes I take a bit long to respond, but I will get there. So just give me some time. But yeah, I'm very happy to answer any remaining questions that you may have.
Great. We have people who would like you to review their portfolio. So maybe that would be like a nice next session to do.
Yes, awesome. Yes, we should do that. We should just have everyone put their portfolio, and then we can see how many we can get through. Do like a peer review. That would be awesome.
Great. Thank you once again. Thank you, and have a great day.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.